Hello, and welcome to this presentation on databases as part of the Leaving Certificate Computer Studies course. In this presentation, we're going to look at the differences between data and information. We're going to look at the four parts that make up a database, known as objects, and we're going to look at how a database can turn data into information. To use databases, you must first have a good understanding of what data is. Data, put simply, is raw facts and figures. Now, data is pretty meaningless to us unless it is presented in a useful way. And when data is presented in a useful way, it becomes information. Let's look at two examples. In this first example, you will see the data on the left-hand side. Now, the data in this case is a student name and grades they achieved during a Christmas exam. Now, you can see that data on its own is pretty meaningless, but when we put it into a student report, it becomes very useful information for the teacher, the student, and the parents. In the second example, we can see the data for a car on the left-hand side. Once again, the data on its own doesn't mean a whole lot to us, but if we were to put it into this for sale poster on the right-hand side, it becomes very useful information, particularly if I'm shopping for a car. So in summary, data is raw facts and figures, and information is when those raw facts and figures are filtered, searched, and sorted and presented in a way that makes sense to us. Now that we've established the difference between data and information, we can start to look at how databases can be used to store and organize data and present information. So what exactly do I do with my database? Let's have a look. First, I enter my data into my database. My database is stored and organized by the database software. When I want to work on my database, I can search, sort, and filter the data, and when I'm ready, I can present the information in a way that makes sense. Databases are made up of four different parts called objects. Let's have a look at how they relate to each other. The first object we are going to look at is the database form. Now, whether you realize it or not, you use database forms almost every day. When you fill in any data online, you are using a database form. For example, when you register for Facebook or even post a comment, you are filling out a database form, and that data is going into the database of that website. So the data from the form gets stored in tables. Now, for websites, you don't see the tables. You just put the information in on the forms. But when we're working with databases, we'll be able to see and indeed edit the information on our tables. When you want to search, sort, or filter your information, you use a third type of object, which is known as a query. When you're happy that you've got the right information lined up, you output the information as a report. And that report is the fourth and final object of your database. So let's look at the flow of data that you put in to information that comes out in a report. Well, the forms are used to capture the data or input the data into the tables. The tables are used to store the data. The data is searched, sorted, and filtered using the queries. And at the final output, the data becomes information in the form of a report. So to summarize, the four objects we looked at were forms, tables, queries, and reports. We are now going to look at a database in action using the website Done Deal. So let's start off with the data entry using a form. I'm going to click on Cars here, and I'm presented with the following form where I need to enter the details of my car. So as you can see, there are a number of fields here for me to enter. So I'm just going to type the information in here. And what you'll notice is as I type in the values, I get these drop downs suggesting what data I should be putting in. These are called lookups, and when you do design your own databases, you'll be putting these in to save time when entering data. Saloon is a lookup there. Manual, and the colors, black. Okay. So I'm then presented with a second form, and so on. So that's my data entry using forms. Now to run a query on the DoneDeal database, I click the search button. And you'll see when I click on my more options here, here's an example of a database query in action. In this case I'm going to say show me all the cars that are valued 3,000 to 10,000 euro that are at least 2008 onwards, and I'm not going to put a maximum in there, and the mileage I want them to have done under 100,000, and I can set other options there like diesel and petrol cars but not electric and hybrid, and I hit the search button. So DoneDeal then presents me with a list of cars that meet my search criteria, and this is in fact an example of a report. So the search itself was a query, and here's the report. And earlier when I put my car information and entered my ad into DoneDeal, that was an example of a form. Now the only part of the database you can't see here is the table behind it all, because that's run by the web administrators.